So here are the notes that we're going to go through today. They're called food chains and food webs. Kids, this should be a breeze because we did the pyramid lab, we did the Socrative, you did your article, you did all those readings in Savas, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that means that you didn't do them. You should log in ClassLink and get your late work in. Okay? So, food chains and food webs model the flow of energy in an ecosystem. That's what they do. So you can see the sea otter it's munching on these red/purple sea urchins because that's what they consume. Aren't you wondering, has anyone ever seen a sea urchin before? They're like pointy, right? Like how do they get in there and eat them? I'm pretty sure they like break them somehow and they consume them by just sucking out all their like guts. Ugh. Okay, and here's a sea otter being cute. Oh, so cute, but they're actually pretty vicious if you've ever met one before. So a food chain is a model that shows a sequence of feeding relationships. So the food chain follows the connection between one producer and a single chain of consumers. Okay, kids, this is review. We're going fast. Within an ecosystem, one pathway of energy flow is represented by a food chain. Okay, so just one chain in the ecosystem is like one organism to the other. Okay, and the arrows point toward the predator. So the arrows always flow up the chain. Okay, you already knew that and you already answered questions on it. So we have a producer here. What's another word for producer that ends in troph? Autotroph, very good. Then we have our desert cottontail, our primary consumer / heterotroph / herbivore. There's 3 words that I can represent for that one. What were they again? Primary consumer, autotroph? Heterotroph. And then the herbivore. And then the hawk here is going to be that third. Yeah, so secondary consumer, heterotroph, and it's a carnivore. Okay, so types of autotrophs. So we have different types. We have the photosynthesizers. They photosynthesize or they conduct photosynthesis. That means that they make organic compounds using light energy. So let's go ahead and highlight that photosynthesis makes organic compounds using light. But there are others I've showed you already that make organic compounds. So let's use another highlighter. Using inorganic molecules that require no light. So these are found in places that don't have a lot of light at all, like the deep sea. Okay, we call this I think it's chemosynthesis with no I. Okay, so you'll need to know the difference between these two. So an example of the chemosynthesis is the hydrothermal vents area of the deep sea. You can see that bacteria oxidize hydrogen sulfide and they add carbon dioxide and oxygen and produce sugar, sulfur, and water, and that is how they make their own food. So in this scenario, the making of hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and oxygen makes sugar, water, and sulfur. So this is an example here of chemosynthesis, whereas plants are typically photosynthesizers. Give me a thumbs up if you're okay with that. Okay. All right. So now here's the difference between them in a picture form. Left side, the plant is taking in sunlight as its primary energy source, and it's converting the sunlight to some type of not usable energy, but like sugar, right? So that sugar is then consumed by the herbivores, and then the carnivores eat the herbivores, okay? So that's how that works. All right, chemosynthesis And this one is going to be where the bacteria is going to be using the energy from the hydrothermal vent to create those products. Okay, so a little bit different. There's no sunlight here involved. All right. So another review, herbivores eat plants, carnivores eat animals, omnivores eat both. And then does anyone remember what the word was for the types of organisms that eat dead organic matter? Omnivore is already there. Starts with a D. Decomposer is going to be the one below it. Decomposers are detritivores. That's the word that goes here. That break down organic matter into simpler compounds and recycle this material back to producers. So detritivores. They eat dead organic matter. Those are your larger animals, such as crows, scavengers, vultures. Those are going to be your detritivores. Okay. Decomposer is going to be smaller, like bacteria-like, small little microorganisms. Okay. So these are your decomposers here. Your mushrooms, fungus. We have a scorpion here that's a carnivore. It's kind of cool. Okay. We are cruising through here. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Okay. So, the trophic levels start at the producer level. That's the first trophic level, so highlight that. Then the second trophic level is going to be where the primary consumers are. Third trophic level is the secondary consumers, and then you guys can get the drift. Tertiary is next. This should be so easy in review. We've done so much practice. Fourth trophic level. So kids sometimes get confused with this, so let me show you what I mean. Sometimes they forget that, like, let's look at this one, for example. Do you see how it says secondary consumers, but it's the third trophic level, right? So it's off by a number because we start with the producers, and producers are not consuming anything, right? So primary consumer, second trophic level. Secondary consumer, third trophic level. Okay, so they're never going to be the same number, trophic level and consumer. Okay. And then the quaternary consumers are typically apex predators. Those are the ones that if you take them away, they will probably, make a trophic cascade happen. We talk about the wolves in the Yellowstone, right? That were removed, everything was impacted. And then you had an example today in your Socrative. So, the last blank here is going to be omnivores. May be listed at different trophic levels in different food chains since they eat both plants and animals. Okay? So then now let's move on to the food web. The food web is going to be showing a complex network of feeding relationships. There are multiple chains, so you got to follow each one up the chain, right? So multiple food chains make a food web. Okay? And so organisms that have multiple feeding relationships in an ecosystem is called a food web. Food webs show multiple feeding relationships and the energy flow. So here's an example of a food web. And so you should be able to list out what your tiers are. So first trophic level, second trophic level, if you follow at least one of these chains up in the food web. Because kids, you're never going to find a food chain in a ecosystem. It's always going to be a food web of many chains. Okay, because there needs to be lots of food sources. It's got to be a lot of things available for those organisms to eat. Okay, so even this one, how many different types of producers do you see in this picture? Can someone name one producer in this image? Yes. The kelp. Anything else? The plankton? Yeah, plankton. We have kelps, seaweeds. Okay, So all of those are going to be at the producer level, okay? And then you go up from there. Here's another example, okay? This one isn't as pretty, but it's nice to see, you know, all of the examples. So if we label this, okay, if we label it, depending on which way you go, you just have to make sure you like commit to it. So like take your highlighter and be like, okay, I'm going to go from the shrub to the rabbit to the insect eating bird to the mountain lion, and then don't forget your bacteria. Okay, so we would label like this is the first trophic level, rabbit is the second, third, fourth, and then if you wanted to include the bacteria, that is like the dead and decomposing matter. The bacteria would actually be last because they are consuming whatever's left and providing those nutrients for the first trophic level again. So it's like a cycle. It's a circle of life. You guys all know the song. Don't deny it. Okay. So I want you to take a highlighter and I want you to highlight, let's go ahead and highlight another food chain. Let's start with the grass. Go ahead and start with the grass and highlight another food chain for me and label it. Label a food chain that I didn't do already with all the vocab you know. Let's go there. Okay. I'm going to give you like a minute because we don't have a lot of time. Okay, so purposes of the recording here, they're like probably like just sitting and waiting. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. I'm going to say producer, autotroph, right? Primary is represented with a 1 degree. That's primary. So if you see the little 1 degree right here for the grasshopper, that's primary, and then you have to write consumer. What is another word we can label the grasshopper? Tell me. Herbivore. Anything else? Yeah. Good. Okay, so you get the drift. So keep going up the chain. That's the first. I think there was one more, right? Second trophic level. Don't forget our new word, trophic level. And then this one is the first trophic level. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 things I labeled the grasshopper and 3 things for the grass. Okay, so as you can see, many things can be labeled on these food chains just to practice your vocabulary. And don't forget that top predator, you should, like the mountain lion or the hawk, you should write apex predator. You guys know how to spell that? Apex, A-P-E-X, predator, because that's like the top predator. If you remove it, it's going to probably, form this trophic cascade of the domino effect. If you take the one out, then you're going to have an overpopulation of the remaining in the food chain. Okay? All right. So I'm going to let you finish that. I'm going to move on in the essence of time. Okay? The energy pyramid is going to show the distribution of energy among trophic levels. It compares energy used by producers and other organisms at different trophic levels. So, the 10% rule you've already learned in your lab is the amount of energy that is transferred from one trophic level to the next. Because, if you didn't know this already, not all energy, not 100% energy is going to transfer to the next level. That organism is going to use some of that energy, right, as heat. You've ever heard of this in like maybe your middle school, like kinetic energy or some type of energy that's like lost to the environment. So it's lost as heat, lost as like waste, okay? So only 10% is actually going to be able to go on to the next organism, which is why those top predators need to consume more, because they need to make up for that energy loss, and they have to consume more animals or whatever at each level, okay? So here is a little pyramid to show you the energy transfer. Okay, so last but not least, biomass, or we think we have a little bit more, but it's all right. Biomass is a measure of the total dry mass of the organisms in a given area. So you're going to have more biomass at the bottom, and as you go up the pyramid, it decreases. So that's why you got to consume more of those animals as you go up the pyramid. Okay, so just take a look at the numbers. 2,000, 675, 150, 75. So as we go up, the amount of biomass decreases. Okay. All right. So then this slide here is showing the pyramid of numbers. So how many of each organism is at each level, not just how much mass there is, okay? So as you can see, there's like 5,000 blades of grass or whatever at the bottom. I'm sorry, 5 million blades of grass at the bottom. And as we go up to the tertiary consumers, the cat, there's only 5 of them at that level, okay? And then lastly, we have biomagnification you guys read about. That is going to be the one where we talk about the chemicals accumulating at higher trophic levels. So the biomass, as it decreases, as you go up each trophic level, the concentration is our word of the chemical will increase. And you learned about this DDT accumulation in your reading for the weekend. And that, my friends, is it. Okay, have a great day. Check your weekly planners, okay? For my people still watching, the last slide is to show the particles. So you're supposed to just draw in very few here, lots of particles here, lots of particles here as it accumulates up the pyramid. And then this level, there's going to be so many to show that DDT accumulation. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.